Hey Catherine, for future reference, if you have a phone, maybe do not call your family and instead call someone like the Coast Guard. Look, I said I was sorry. Oh, we're lucky my Uncle Lamney found this island, so I guess we're here until we can find a way off or something like that. I don't know. Luckily though, ever since the incident with the reptilians, I have installed a feature on our screen that allows it to come to us anywhere on the planet, with full images already included. So, as such, you two stay here, I'm gonna go make a video. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Tiny Terrors. As always, I'm your host, Mr.G. When I checked our screen for videos, I found out that someone already made a water bug video, which is nice. I hope it was good and wasn't hosted by someone who didn't know what they were talking about. Anyway, let's just move on. Today's video is all about the world of caterpillars. Now this is going to be an interesting video since caterpillars are not their own animal, but rather, as pretty much everyone knows, caterpillars are the juvenile state of butterflies and moths. Pretty much everyone knows what a caterpillar is and what it does. They eat leaves, turn into a cocoon, and come out as a butterfly. But, as baby animals who cannot fly away from their problems, many species of caterpillar have developed other defense mechanisms in order to fight off the baby munchers of the animal kingdom. So, let's take a look at some of them. There are some caterpillars, such as the Puss moth and the Lobster moth, whose defense mechanism involves actually attacking their prey. You see, for both of these species, when they are in their caterpillar stage, they're able to spray acid from themselves onto their predators, causing severe burns. So as such, predators learn to avoid them. One thing for the Puss moth caterpillar, though, is that it's often confused with the Puss caterpillar, which is a completely different species. These guys are the young of the flannel moth, and they may look fuzzy, but do not touch them. Their hairs are covered in poison, and they can easily kill a human or make them very sick. So if you see what looks like a walking wig in your backyard eating leaves, leave it alone, just leave it alone, and maybe try to get pesticide or an exterminator or something. But do not touch it! Some caterpillars use mimicry in order to ward off prey. You see, there are some caterpillars who, as they age, they end up looking like snakes, thus scaring away birds, since, as you know, snakes eat birds. Unless they're eagles or secretary birds. Or I guess cassowaries, but those are vegetarians, so that doesn't count. What am I talking about? There's the Regal moth caterpillar, which is commonly known as the hickory devil, which is covered in spikes that, as you can imagine, makes it very unappetizing to most predators. And the last thing about caterpillars that I'll be mentioning is the fact that there are some species of moths, such as the Atlas Moth, which is what I'm depicting on screen, which are unable to eat once they reach adulthood. Only their young are able to eat. So as such, once they turn to adults, they live off their fat storages, and then once those run out, they die. I'm still not sure what the practicality use of this is, or how this hasn't been weeded out by natural selection, but I guess it's working, since none of these moths are endangered from what I can tell. Now, the thing to keep in mind of all the caterpillars mentioned in this video is that they only have these powers when they're young. Once they metamorphosize into their butterfly or moth forms, they completely lose any sort of defense mechanism and just have to fly away from everything. Unless they're like the monarch butterfly, which actually gains more defenses as it grows up. Since, as most people know, monarch butterflies spend most of their time drinking the nectar of a poisonous plant called the milkweed, which makes them unappetizing to prey. Which makes them unappetizing to predators, since if they eat the butterfly, they'll get sick. Let's look at the cards. I don't have a lot to say about these guys, I just find it interesting that for a lot of them they depict their juvenile forms instead of their adult forms, which from what I remember, they only ever did one other time when they did Moosaurus, so yeah, that's definitely interesting. But other than that, I can't find any errors here, so they all get 10 out of 10s. Now, obviously, everyone knows that people like butterflies. They're one of the only bugs that aren't typically afraid of by people with fears of bugs. And people catch butterflies, people pin them against walls, people keep butterflies in large glass rooms. Yeah, people love butterflies. Moths don't have that good of a reception. I mean, there's the whole eating clothes thing, but There's also the fact that the most famous fictional moth is literally a giant monster. And yes, I know Mothra's a good guy, you don't have to point that out, I'm just saying. However, you might notice that butterflies and moths are only considered not pests when they're adults, because several species as caterpillars, yeah, they could actually be pretty harmful to gardens. As you might know, caterpillars need to eat a lot in order to have enough energy to metamorphosize. So, imagine how crop farmers might feel noticing that all of their plants have been stripped of leaves, which, need I remind you, are important for a plant to live. Yeah, you can probably imagine that wouldn't be a good thing. And some moth and butterfly species are worse than others with this aspect, such as the moth whose name contains a racial slur, so I'm not saying it here, which is infamous for the amount of crop damage it does. So yeah, people like butterflies, caterpillars are a bit iffy. And also, can I just talk about something? Well, that's all for this episode of Tiny Terrors. Next time, we're talking about an ant's worst nightmare. Second worst nightmare, behind anteaters. Bye!
Hey, who goes there?
Uh-oh.